Um, my name is Heather Kingery. I am the Senior Manager of Account Management for the Fields and Forests program. I'm going to be presenting today with two of our foresters. We have Logan Gaskin, who's an outreach forester, and Chuck Black, also an outreach forester in the Southeast. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping notes. The first is that we are recording, so there will be a recording sent out to all participants and registrants after the webinar concludes. So if you need to drop early or if there's something you want to go back and reference, you will have the opportunity to get that. We also will have a Q&A session at the end. So in the Zoom kind of bar at the bottom, there is a Q&A box. Please feel free to type your questions in as we go along, and we will address those at the end between the three of us. So just to get started, what is Fields and Forests? We are a program, we work in the Southeast US with family forest landowners and family landowners to plant and grow loblolly pine on open fields. The purpose of this is to diversify the income streams on the property and to provide, multiple opportunities within the pine plantation to generate profits. So we are a program of the American Forest Foundation, and we're affiliated with the Family Forest Carbon Program. The American Forest Foundation is a national nonprofit organization. We've been in the business of supporting family landowners since 1932. And we are the parent organization of the American Tree Farm System. So you might recognize us from the diamond-shaped green and white signs that you see along woodlands when you're maybe out driving on some of these rural roads. We offer the Fields and Forests program because we think it's important to allow opportunities or to provide opportunities for farmers and landowners to diversify their operations and generate a low maintenance revenue stream from underutilized land. So in our program, we don't require that you enroll all open land or all cropland or all grazing land. You can continue to do that on adjacent land. This is an opportunity to kind of add another revenue stream to your land. We also understand that establishing a pine forest is expensive. It has a lot of upfront costs and a lot of technical expertise that's required. So our program steps in, removes that barrier by taking care of the cost of getting the pine forest established and coordinating all of the forestry support, planting, site prep, all of those things. We also, by doing this, are able to support landowners growing those working pine forests to help reach our mission of caring for land, being good land stewards. We're increasing the amount of carbon stored on the property, and that's fulfilling our mission of creating a meaningful conservation impact. So kind of the highlights here, what attracts people to our program? As I mentioned, all of the upfront costs of establishing the pine plantation are covered by our program. We'll get into the details of what all is covered there, but that's a huge benefit. You also receive an annual payment of $30 per enrolled acre per year. There is the opportunity to harvest your timber. I think our foresters are going to chat a little bit more about that, but you get to keep all of the revenue generated from timber harvest. We require a minimum of 30 acres of open land. You're committing to a 30-year agreement, and we provide forestry expertise through our staff foresters like Logan and Chuck, or through local partners on the ground, kind of third-party consultants. So some of the the key things to remember here: 30 acres of land, 30-year contract, $30 per acre per year. So 30, 30, 30. To be eligible for fields and forests, you must have this 30 acres of open land within the historical range of loblolly pine in Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and or South Carolina. The property must be privately owned, so no public lands are eligible. And those 30 acres need to not have had any trees on them for the past 10 years. So it can be grazing land, cropland, other kinds of open land, but not if it was recently clear cut from pine in the last 10 years, that will not be eligible. If you do have less than 30 acres, but you are interested in planting, please reach out to us. If there are enough neighbors nearby, we may be able to work on something to kind of group your projects together and get you planted. The other key here is that you have to have the legal right to harvest timber. So we don't run into this one very often, but sometimes there are conservation easements on the land that prevent timber harvesting, or a third party owns the timber rights. So again, getting into a few more details about the benefits as a landowner of enrolling in the Fields and Forests program. We have those guaranteed annual payments, $30 per acre per year. Those payments are not tied to any specific outcome. It's your money to use how you choose. So you receive that money every year. And of course, we hope that you put it towards stewarding your land or paying taxes, keeping the land in your family. But we don't check to see how you've spent that money or how it's been used. And notably, our payments include an anticipated growth in the carbon markets over the next 30 years. So we've taken into account the expected growth in the carbon market, how we expect it to perform, and calculated that into the payment rate. So you're guaranteed $30 per acre, and you are isolated from any downturns in the market. So if something does not go to plan or does not pan out as we've calculated or anticipated it will, you won't feel any negative effects of that. So you can see here a sample payment for a 30-acre property at $30 per acre per year. You would receive $900 per year, $27,000 over the life of the contract. So it's certainly not going to, this isn't like a get-rich-quick scheme, but it can help offset the costs of maintaining the property and making this land use change. In addition to those annual payments, we also have, we cover those upfront costs of getting the property planted into pine. So not an insignificant value to you as a landowner there. So we cover site prep, chemical, mechanical site prep as required to prepare the land for planting. We take care of ordering the seedlings. This includes shipping, storage until they're ready to be planted. We coordinate the planting, so machine planting or a hand planting crew to come out to the property, get those trees in the ground. We do an herbicide release after planting to make sure that those trees aren't being outcompeted by other vegetation. We provide you with a forest management plan, which will include recommendations around harvesting, thinning, forest health. That's developed by a professional forester. And we have professional forester oversight over the whole process so that everything is done to the highest standards. And if a year after planting, we come back, we check to make sure that there's good survival on all the trees that are in the ground. And if there is significant mortality, we also take care of replanting and the cost and the coordination of all of that. So hopefully that's not something that comes up, but worst case scenario, if it does, we will help out in getting those trees replanted. Further as I mentioned, you get to keep all the revenue from timber harvest. So we recommend that towards the end of the contract term and towards the end of the 30 years, that you harvest the trees and you can sell these as high quality saw logs. Unlike our traditional row crops that are harvested year over year, you are able to kind of time up those harvests to align with timber market performance, so maximizing that potential revenue. You keep all of the profits. You are responsible for hiring a forester to oversee the harvest, but that usually comes right out of those proceeds from the harvest. And the other benefit is if you harvest in year 30 of the contract or before, we will replant to loblolly at no additional cost to you. So on this 30-acre project, we see a potential harvest income of $60,000 in that year 25 to 30. So all of those benefits really add up between the program payments, the cost saving or the value of the establishment of the pine forest, the forest management plan, and the revenue you could receive from a timber harvest. We're looking at nearly $107,000 in value to you as the landowner over the course of the 30-year agreement. I do want to say that, of course, these numbers are our best estimates today. A lot of the costs and logistics, transportation, planting, site prep are really site specific and kind of depend on location, but we've tried to estimate here what we think is a pretty average value across the region. Again, this is really intended to be a low maintenance income stream for you as a landowner. So again, there's no upfront investment, no significant time commitment to you as a landowner as you get into this program. So of course, we want you to do your due diligence to make sure that you're reading the contract. There's a few pieces of paperwork, but you are not required to facilitate or coordinate the planting, the site prep, the contractors that we work with. Our team takes care of all of that. We also provide the seedlings. We take care of really all of those logistics. So the investment on your end is really in the decision-making of if this program is a good fit for you. It's also a low maintenance crop, loblolly pine is. There's no really day-to-day or week-to-week operational needs. So you don't need to go out and water the trees. You don't need to fertilize them. Loblolly is native to this region, and so it is adapted to grow well under the local conditions. It's also really easy for that reason to pass this on to future generations, to heirs, or if you were to sell the property. That's also something you can do. I know 30 years is a long commitment, and so one question we get a lot is, well, what happens if I want to pass this on to my children, my grandchildren, or if I decide that I want to sell the property. The contract that you sign with us is transferable. So as long as your children, your grandchildren, the buyer of the property agrees, we can transfer that, and the contract then becomes the next owner's responsibility. So we provide flexibility within the contract there as well. There's no change to the ownership. So I know I talked about what happens if you decide to sell, but we don't gain ownership over your land. We don't have unrestricted access to your land. The only rights that we get to your land are the carbon rights to the timber in the area where you're planting. So you're not required to open it to the public. And if our team or our contractors need to come out to your property to do that mortality check, like I mentioned, or do any other measurements, that's something that we always coordinate with you as the landowner. we will never just show up on your property. You maintain privacy and rights to your land. We see the long-term value of the property increase. We see healthier land on adjacent fields for farming. We're providing wildlife habitat and opportunities for recreation, whether that's getting out and just hiking, bird watching, hunting. There's a lot of great opportunities that Loblolly provides in that way. And we will support you for the 30-year contract. So our team is prepared to advise you on contract terms if there's different land management strategies you're considering. We have that forest management plan as a tool for you. We also have a team here with the Fields and Forests program that can advise you on that sort of work. We also can connect you with a community of other landowners who are managing their property similarly, or who've also made the switch from open land to loblolly. And there's a great opportunity there to share resources. We'll share updates and events, local events with you, that sort of thing. So now I'm going to hand it off to Logan to share with you a little bit about what to expect when you enroll in our program.
Hello, everybody. I hope y'all are doing well. As Heather mentioned, I'm the outreach forester for the state of Alabama, so I have the pleasure of actually getting Fields and Forests on the ground. This has been our first season in Alabama, really working. We've been on the ground the last couple years in Georgia. So where I'm going to start off is after you visit our website and create a profile and enroll or are pursuing enrollment. What will happen is a forester will pick up the project like myself, and we will conduct what's known as an initial site visit. I will come to the property, assigned forester comes to the property to meet the landowner on site. The landowner doesn't have to be present. If they wish to be present, the more the merrier. But if not, the forester can usually do what they have to do fairly quickly. So the forester is going to come out, assess the boundaries, assess the vegetation cover on the project area that we're looking at. The only requirement that we have is that the project area be less than 10% canopy cover, and that is with woody stems, trees. Mainly, we're looking at existing pine trees or hardwood species like sweet gum. If those trees are well enough established, we aren't able to enroll the project simply because of the carbon loss. But after the forester assesses the site, they're there for your use to answer questions that you guys may have. And then after that, all the data that we collect is shared with an account manager who's the second half of our operation. We couldn't do anything we do without the account managers. We share the data with the account manager to start planning the project. And then if you are enrolled and decide to continue, a second visit is scheduled for us to come out and do what's known as MRV. We establish these survey plots that we can come back to just to monitor the growth of trees, make sure everything is going as planned. That's all the initial site visit is really there to accomplish. Moving on from that, we go to site preparation, which is the act of we actually bring on contractors. They could be machine spraying crews or hand spraying crews that come on to perform chemical site prep of the property. There are times where we do pursue mechanical site prep if needed. Typically, that's not a route we go, but we will if we need to. Typically, site prep is conducted late summer, early fall, before things start to brown down for the winter. You really want the vegetation to take the chemical well, but you don't want to spray it, early summer where the chemical wears off before the dead season, because we want the chemical to stay in the ground to keep, they spray what's called a pre-emergent to keep the grass from coming back in the spring, which is crucial for the tree survival. And another note is that we are always looking to help local consulting foresters. So if you have a consulting forester, they're more than welcome to come. We also encourage them to enroll with us to be a consulting forester. We can use them in many different ways. But moving on from site prep, we have tree planting. As Heather said, we're only planting loblolly pine, and we do our best to match the soil of the area that we're planting to the seedling soil that it was grown in. This is obviously very important for several reasons. Um, Mainly for survival, we have a very high threshold for our survival for a successful project. 85% is the number that we try to accomplish. But once we match the seedling type to the soil, the planting crew will plant trees under supervisors, the supervision of AFF, as well as your consulting forester can be there. Um, During the first year, we work to ensure survival of trees, and that's through multiple different steps. Um, One, we will come back typically 6 months to a year after planting and do seedling survival check, just to make sure that that 85% number is what we want. Um, and moving on from planning, we have post planning allowances. There's several different allowances that we have here. The most asked about allowance that I get is about burning, which you see controlling competing vegetation, burning, chemical release fall under that. We allow for that stuff. Uh, as most of you probably know, burning is typically a very good method to control vegetation while providing vital wildlife habitat. But we also allow for thinning and harvesting. Um, Thinning is something that is becoming hard to do in the area that I'm in of Alabama. If you're not, within 50 miles, 60 miles, 70 miles of a pulp mill, it's getting tough to do. So, um, but typically between years 12 and 17 is the years that you look at doing your first thinning on a stand. And we also push that your consulting forester is the one that should help you decide when the proper time to thin is. There's several things that go into that: canopy closure, diameter of trees. Um, and as Heather said earlier, if you harvest within that 30-year contract, you are required to replant the harvested area, and we will pay the same deal that we have at this moment. 30 years down the road, we will pay for all the site prep. Um, and as Heather also mentioned, we will provide a forest management plan to the landowner, which is typically uh, a pretty expensive investment for a stack of paper. So that's great value for the landowner. And the last thing I'm going to cover is the project timeline. This is kind of post site visit after a contract is signed. So what we're looking at is 60 days after signing the contract is when around when payment should start. In March to July, we work with the landowner to help develop the forest management plan after signing. August, October is site preparation. Um, that's when, as I talked about, chemical site prep crews out on the ground, possible mechanical site prep. And then the winter of that same year, so December to early spring of the next year, December to March, is your prime planting dates for pine tree survival. And then, 8 to 10 months later, we're looking at coming back around November to do an assessment of the trees that are planted, seedling survival check, as I call it. Um, and then years 2 through 30 is what we talked about with Heather. She mentioned it's sort of low maintenance crop. The first 2 years are the most important years to get the pine trees up and growing. But the management plan is going to cover the rest of that for the landowner. We're going to kind of make it very simple as for what the landowner should do. Um, and that's all I've really got to cover. The next thing we're going to go to are frequently asked questions, and I'm going to turn it over to our Tennessee forester, Mr. Chuck Black, and he is going to knock that out for you guys.
How are you all today? My name is Chuck Black. I am the outreach forester in Tennessee. I'm having a little difficulty with the camera. Let's see if I can get it on. Uh, just a quick reminder for everybody on in the bottom of the webinar on the Zoom page, there is an area where you can put your questions, and hopefully we can address them at the end of this presentation. So my first slide that I am going to address, and it's a question we get a lot of, is how is Fields and Forests funded? And we get our funding from several different sources. We receive our fundings from a voluntary carbon market, which is just an exchange that allows private entities to buy carbon credits to offset the carbon emissions. So that is one way. Another way is grants and private donations. Our goal for the American Forest Foundation is to eventually be funded completely by the voluntary carbon market. And what we do enter in with some carbon credit purchase agreements with the corporations who pay for credits up front. So that is one of our goals, is to be completely funded by that market. But until we do that, we also get fundings from grants or loans, as well as private and public philanthropic donors. And one of the things about AFF, American Forest Foundation, is we are a nonprofit organization. We do not have shareholders. We don't have investors looking for a return on investments, and we don't make a profit from your land. So on the chart, kind of on the right-hand side, it all begins with the landowners, and the landowners sequester the carbon, which allows us to create a verified carbon credit, which then allows the partnering companies to purchase these credits. So the next slide, I will be talking about how are credits generated. And it is going beyond business as usual. A carbon credit is high quality if it represents an actual change in the atmospheric concentration of CO2 in the long term, known as additionality. And additionality is defined as taking underutilized lands, such as croplands, fallow lands, land that has not been in timber production, where we plant those trees, and those trees begin to sequester carbon. And that is what is known as additionality. So how do we measure that? How do we measure that additionality? We use a methodology called dynamic baseline, and it is to isolate fields and forests as the single variable that contributes to the carbon removed. And basically what that means, if you look at the chart on the right, it is comparing land that is not enrolled or is not managed, that is the bottom, to those areas that have been enrolled in our project. So therefore, we're able to verify, look at those areas and see if we are actually gaining carbon or getting that additionality that is what our program is designed for. And we utilize a nonprofit organization, a third-party nonprofit organization called Vera, and they set the standards for climate actions, and they'll set the standards for carbon sequestration. So the next slide, we will be the big question we always have is why loblolly pine? And the reason we utilize loblolly pine is it is the most common native tree species in the American Southeast. It's fast growing. It can reach heights up to 90 feet and has the potential to grow up to 2 feet per year. It is highly adaptable. It can grow on numerous types of soils, wet areas as well as dry areas. It is resilient to severe weather. Loblolly produces a high value timber, and additionally, it is compared to other species, loblolly pine captures and stores carbon more efficiently. So another question we always receive and always want to know is what happens in the event of a natural disaster? We have natural disaster safeguards. If, for example, if there's a tornado or a weather event, there's no penalty to the landowner, and AFF may, or Fields and Forest may replant or will adjust the contracted areas. Another question we always have is timber markets. And one of the things we are here in the South, our timber markets, past and present, one of the words we can say is consistency. The little chart there has a year to 2019 through 2024. The United States Southern Pine area or market sawlog prices are indicated by that area highlighted in red, circled in red, and the line is brown, and you can see it's a fairly flat line versus the other areas where you have a lot of peaks and valleys. For example, the sawlog prices in the Northwest have demonstrated noticeable volatility compared to the prices in the South. So the next two slides are going to talk about the timber market past and present, and as well as our future markets as well. But this chart here illustrates from 2019 to 2024, the area in orange shows a steady growth of softwood lumber production in the U.S. South versus the other areas throughout the country. So our current market, Southern U.S. operations focus, companies are relocating operations to the U.S. South, and they are attracted by the stable manufacturing cost and lower labor and energy expenses. And we're also seeing a shift spurring reinvestment and revitalization in the area, making it a significant player in the forest products sector. And finally, the future projection. The World Bank predicts that demand for timber globally will quadruple in 2050. One of the things we are seeing is utilizing smaller diameter trees, utilizing OSB, oriented strand board, or cross-laminated timbers. And what they are is making mass timber buildings, utilizing the smaller timber. Currently, we have seen in Georgia that they have built a mass timber structure in Georgia. And also the number of U.S. mass timber construction projects completed or planned as of June 2023 is 1,860. So that is one of the revenues we are looking at as well, for you to be able to utilize the smaller diameter trees in some of these markets as well. So the next slide, I will hand it off to Heather. She will go through the enrollment steps as well as then open up open up for answering any questions we might have. So once again, if you can put in your questions at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Yeah, so if this is an opportunity that you're interested in exploring, we do encourage you to put your property information into our website. So you go to our website, there's a nice map, and you select the property that you own. That gives you, once you do that, you have the opportunity to schedule a call with our account managers They will talk to you about some of the specifics of the program, your goals, your interests, specific information about your property that might be relevant. And then they'll connect you with a forester. So someone like Chuck or Logan will come out to your property. They will confirm what we're seeing on our maps and develop a planting plan for your property. They'll hand that off to the account manager. At that time, you'll be able to review the offer. You'll be able to, we'll send you a blank version of the contract, of course, make sure that you understand what you're signing up for. The account manager walks you through all those questions you might have and helps to make sure that you're comfortable with the commitment you're making. And then we send you your official contract for signature. At which point we then go back to those steps that Logan outlined about getting the forest management plan and starting to talk about site prep. So the enrollment deadline to be planted in 2026 is the end of March. So we encourage you to make take these steps early. March sounds like a long way away, but I would say it typically takes a couple of months for landowners to move through this process. And after the end of March, we cannot guarantee planting in 2026. And so if you are thinking that you want to be planted and you want to be planted like this time next year, we really encourage you to take those steps sooner rather than later. We are also running a couple of limited time offers to help you potentially take the next steps in our program. So we love the opportunity to speak with landowners, to hear from you about your experience, your goals, any feedback you have on our program. And so we're right now offering a $250 Visa gift card as a thank you for all landowners who go up through the offer stage of the program. So there's no obligation to enroll with this. We simply would love the opportunity to visit you on your property, to chat with you about your goals for the land. And if you do that by the end of January, we will send you that $250 Visa gift card. Further, if you choose to enroll and you do that by the end of March 2026, we can provide you with a signing bonus of $1,000 or $10 per enrolled acre, whichever is greater. So another great benefit if you are considering enrollment for planting in the 2026 planting season. So I believe you had someone drop the link in the chat, but here it is again. Check your eligibility using our website and then go ahead and book a call with us. We have some great account managers who can provide you more information, answer all of your specific property questions, go into a lot of detail about the program. And you can also reach out to us. You can call us at our phone number listed there or email us at fieldsandforests@forestfoundation.org, and we will reply to your email. All right, I am going to open it up for questions here. I see we have quite a few in the chat, so thank you for getting those in. If other questions come up, feel free to drop those and we'll get those as soon as we can. So the first question here is, what happens if a stand suffers a significant loss, such as we experienced with our timber during Hurricane Helene? So I believe Chuck touched on this, but just to summarize, we have a part in the contract that talks about acts of God, things that are no fault of yours as a landowner, ours as the program. So these include natural disasters. This would include pest and disease outbreak. I think the contract goes so far as to include things like, acts of war. So really things that are like beyond anything we can anticipate or plan for. So there's no penalty to you. We may choose to terminate the contract. We may replant. That's something we just evaluate on a case-by-case basis, depending on the extent of the damage. So I hope that also answers, someone else asked, the pine beetles count as a natural disaster? Yes, pine beetles would be included in that kind of contract clause about acts of God. Okay, are we allowed to collect pine straw from the stand?
Yes, you are. That's a simple answer. Yes, you are. That's another revenue stream other than a thinning. You can definitely collect the pine straw. So that's another revenue stream that you can utilize.
Yeah, pine straw is a great opportunity. We've seen opportunities for decorative pine cones. We've seen people sell hunting leases, other recreation leases. So all of that is compatible with our program and with the contract that you sign. All right, Laura is asking, is there a similar program for planting trees in Virginia?
No, not yet. We're not in those areas yet. I think correct me wrong if I'm Logan, I think we're looking at Virginia. Is that correct?
Yes, we're considering the native ranges in like coastal Virginia. It's coming soon. We're going to Florida this year, and then I would expect in the next 2 to 5 years for us to be expanding the coastal area of North Carolina as well as going up towards Virginia.
And I think we maybe even eventually be going into Mississippi as well, which is again the natural range of loblolly. So if you kind of look at a map of the natural range of loblolly, those are probably some of the states we'll probably eventually get into slowly, but we will.
We also have the option when you go to our website and find your property. If we're not active in a county where your property is or a state where your property is, there's the option to be notified when we do become operational in that area. So that's another way you can get notified and stay in touch with us about these opportunities. All right. Next question is, if we look for credits in existing pine timber stands. Chuck, I think you talked about our methodology a little bit. Would you like to take this one?
Yeah, we do. We look at other areas based on additionality or increase the carbon sequestration. So what we do is we compare a area that's in the project versus an area that's not within our project. And typically what we find is in a managed area, such as a project area, it typically sequesters carbon more than a natural standard one that's not managed. So yes, we do kind of compare that, and that's where we get the additionality from for the carbon credits.
Yes, thanks, Chuck. So the short answer is no, we are not currently enrolling existing pine stands through this program. Can you plant over a clear cut that's 5 years or older? Our methodology requires us to have not had any trees on the property for at least 10 years. So if it was clear cut 10 years ago and maintained open, we can plant that. But if it's between 5 and 10 years, we unfortunately can't enroll that land. Next question is, if we harvest timber at, say, year 15, do you pay to have it all replanted for the remaining 15 years?
I'm gonna say that the way it works is that we would never suggest a clear cut at year 15. The thinning is something we would suggest years, between years 12 and 17. It all depends if it's something like you get some pine beetles, and the only way we can ensure that we save the value of the timber is to remove it all, possibly. But I would say we're not going to suggest a clear cut at year 15. Um, that situation hasn't really came across my board yet, but I would say in the short, more than likely not, considering I wouldn't recommend a clear cut at 15. But I'm not 100% sure on that. I'll have to refer to some resources to see if I can find a better answer to that question.
Yeah, we can certainly follow up on that one. I believe the contract and the practice includes certain specifications about the volume of timber that needs to be on the property before a thinning or a final harvest. So I suppose if it met the volume requirements and you harvested at 15, we would go ahead and replant. I'm just not sure what exactly the likelihood of that is. I think Logan and Chuck could answer that, but we can certainly follow up. Landowners can't enroll in other carbon programs during fields and forest contract, correct? Yeah, this is a great question. So through our program, what we get are the carbon rights for the timber or the trees on the property. So we have a very specific contract area that is outlined that we are paying you for, that is enrolled in our program. And if there is forest outside of that contract area or a different type of carbon program, let's say like a grasslands carbon program, that is something that you could be eligible for, you could enroll in. Now, I've heard some feedback that other carbon programs want it on completely separate parcels. So it would really just depend on the other carbon program and if they were to allow you to enroll, adjacent property. But no, you cannot enroll in, say, the Fields and Forests program and then like another program that pays for carbon from pine trees on that same area of land. That would be like double dipping, essentially, double counting those carbon credits. Great question. Can you touch on the hardwood program versus the pine planting, the planted pine program? I can go ahead and answer this one. And Chuck, you can feel free to add on. But yes, we do have another program through the Family Forest Carbon Program that's for existing hardwood stands. It's called Growing Mature Forest. So we have some minimum requirements around the type of hardwoods and the volume of hardwoods on the property. But in that one, we are paying for you to manage your existing hardwood forest to keep it, it's called Growing Mature Forest. So keeping it as a mature forest, doing sustainable forestry management on that land. That contract is shorter. It's a 20-year contract and the payment structure is different. When you enter your information through our website, it will tell you if you're eligible for Fields and Forests or Growing Mature Forests or both. Anything that my foresters want to add? All right. Why loblolly and not longleaf pines?
I can answer that. The main reason, and Logan can tag team as well on this, but the main reason is there's a little more upfront cost in planting a longleaf pine because it's in the grass stage. That's one. It is more susceptible to competition because it is in the grass stage. So therefore, you have to manage the competition a little bit better, a little stronger. Secondly, since it is in the grass stage, it takes an additional 5-7 years probably to get out of that grass stage to start putting on timber. So therefore, within the 30-year contract, it wouldn't really reach maturity levels for that. And the other reasoning being for longleaf would be site specific. It's a little more site specific. It needs a drier site versus a loblolly. And the loblolly once again has a larger natural range versus longleaf. If Logan has any other comments?
Yeah, you pretty much nailed that. The best way I can answer that question is we don't prefer going to a 50-year contract. So, on top of all the other things with longleaf, the contract length would just would be not ideal for us or landowners. So yeah, you pretty much nailed that one.
Thank you. I see we have a question in the chat about cattle. Can cattle be on the land where the trees are planted?
I have encountered this a couple of times with grow mature forests. Cattle are something, especially with young pine trees, we try to stay away from, typically because they tend to be fairly destructive, especially to trees in that stage. On top of that, they are pretty rough on compacting the soil further, which is also rough on survival. So I'm gonna say no. Um, maybe if it's a small herd, there may be something we can look at doing, but for the most part, we try to stay away from cattle.
Yeah, thanks, Logan. I believe the contract says that if it is outlined in your forest management plan, and if a forester has determined that there's no risk to the survival of the trees, then it may be considered. So we leave it kind of vague in the contract. It's definitely something that would be an ongoing conversation between you as the landowner with your forester. Looks like looks like we have one final question here. Do you offer higher payments for larger tracts of land? So currently that's not a practice that we have. Our program is designed to serve smaller acreage landowners, family forest owners. That's why we go down to as few as $30 per acre, or 30 acres rather, for eligibility. So we have not increased payments for larger tracts of land. Now, as I mentioned, we do currently have that signing bonus, and so that is $10 per eligible acre, or $1,000, whichever is greater. So of course, if you have more acres, you can qualify for that larger signing bonus if you choose to enroll for the next planting season. Any final questions? Great. Well, we really appreciate everyone's attendance. We hope that you check your eligibility, that you talk to an account manager. You reach out to us if there's any questions that we didn't answer. We're happy to follow up. And yeah, really appreciate you all being here. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good rest of y'all's day.